Welcome to CEBSAR Talk. I am Evans Apia Kisi, the host of CEBSAR Talk. CEBSAR is Center for Better Society Advocacy and Research Africa. CEBSAR Africa is a non-profit organization that believes in a better society for all. We in CEBSAR Africa believe that a better society begins with you and I. Hashtag, a better society begins with me. For more information, please log on to www.cebsarafrica.org. Please follow us on the various social media platforms: YouTube, CEBSAR Talk, Facebook at CEBSAR Africa, Instagram, CEBSAR Africa, and Twitter at CEBSAR Africa. Today, we bring you another interesting discussion, a one-on-one with Marricke Kofi Gane. He's an independent presidential aspirant for the 2020 elections in Ghana. I must say that we are very excited to host him today, and we are streaming live on Facebook as well. So for those of us joining us on CEBSAR Africa, and also those of you who follow AK Mensah, he will be sharing it on his wall. Please don't forget to comment, send in your questions, and it would be answered by Honorable Marricke Kofi Gane. So today on CEBSAR Talk, what we do is that we interrogate Marricke Kofi Gane, an independent presidential aspirant, to put forward why he should be elected as the president of Ghana in the 7th December polls, and what ways he intends positioning Ghana to catch up with the current world order. We particularly find out from him his plans to build a better society for our people in Ghana. For those of you who don't know him, Marricke Kofi Gane, like I said previously, is an independent presidential aspirant for Ghana's 2020 presidential elections. He's a chartered certified accountant. He's a director of program in public financial management. He runs the MG Consulting Limited, a private executive coaching consultancy in Ghana. He's an international development expert. He's a member of Association of Chartered Certified Accountants, ACCA. He holds a postgraduate certificate in microfinance for development from the University of Greenwich, England. We are so grateful to host you, and let me say welcome, Mr. Marricke Kofi Gane, to CEBSAR Talk today.
Evans, thank you for having me. Always a pleasure to be here. And I look forward to what today brings. So thank you and the rest of the team for having me here. Genuinely appreciate it.
Thank you.
I hope you have been well, though.
Yes, I've been well, thank you. And I'm sure you've also been well. Thank you also for finding time and joining us today to have a one-on-one discussion with you. So I'll start straight away without wasting much time, because I know you have other duties also to take care of. For those who are watching you for the first time, the question they ask is, who is Marricke Kofi Gane, and why do you want to be president of Ghana?
Well, I mean, in a nutshell, I'm Ghanaian. I was born in the Volta region in Keta. I grew up as a fisherman. I went to Keta Secondary School and then started my accreditation for chartered accountancy, and then did some really good work for the private sector and public sector in terms of auditing and consulting right here in Ghana. And those are works I'm proud of. So we audited quite a bit of some of the biggest organizations in this country. Did some work side by side with other public sector agencies relating to UN programs and projects that were happening here in Ghana at the time. And then I left for the UK briefly, and there I chanced on, I was blessed to have worked with some really good international organizations, the Christian Aid, the Commonwealth of Nations Secretariat, the Crown Agents, the International Alert. And that saw me working in close to about 20 countries in all. And so, it's been a real blessing having been able to work across the diaspora, work across Africa, and including Ghana itself. And that has, stretched the span of both accounting, auditing, international development, lecturing even. And so I hopefully come to the table with a lot of some of the things that the leadership of Ghana needs right now, three of which are a core element of my upbringing career-wise, which is accountability, value for money, and ensuring that we have some critical thinking in the way we run our governance systems in this country. So that has been a bit of the background I come from. I'm sure there will be other questions along the way that I hopefully can answer. You also asked the question, why do I want to run for office? I mean, the answers are quite varied for that question, but very simply put, Evans, if we all know what the state of Ghana is right now. For me, I think we need to narrow down to what we are faced with, which is that if we allow things, and this is the reason why I'm running, if we allow things to continue the way they are, then 10 years down the line, businesses will still have a level of vindictiveness against them, because as we have it now, if you're a business that has any alignment to any political party, when another political party comes, you need to go underground. When this other political party comes, you need to go underground. We cannot build an economy like that. If we allow things to stay the way they are, Evans, we will continue to have a funeral economy rather than a health system. And we need to move away from that. If we allow things to continue the way they are, Evans, we will continue to have an educational system that does not allow young people to come out of school being a good match for what industry requires of them skills-wise. And indeed, if we allow things to continue the way they are, investors are not going to be coming to this country the manner in which we want them to come in, because of the high levels of corruption they face. And so, in part, for us, what we are doing is largely a duty rather than something we find motivational. For me, this is a duty to country. That we see things going wrong, and that we have the skills and we have the capabilities and the people to step in there and make the changes that are required to secure all of our futures, not just a few of us.
Thank you very much, Honorable Marricke Kofi Gane. So if I capture what you said quite well, very humble background from you, but mainly the reason why you are running for the presidential race is that you see it as a duty to country, and you want to right the wrong, if I put it that way, in the system. And so that brings me to another question, which I feel you've partly answered already, which is in your manifesto on page 2, where you say that you want to take, or I'm taking you to paraphrase, you said, I am taking you to a new Ghana that works for all of us. And the question people have been asking is, what do you mean by this statement? I mean, what is wrong with the current Ghana that we have now? Are they the things that you pointed out with the vindicativeness in businesses, the funeral economy, rather than the health system? What is wrong with the current Ghana? When you say you want to take us to a new Ghana, is there something wrong with the current Ghana?
Well, the current Ghana doesn't work for all of us, Evans. I mean, all you have to do is to travel beyond. I mean, you don't even have to travel 1 hour outside of Accra. You start to see that Ghana is only working for a section of Ghana. I'll give you an example, and these are examples that can be verified with reports that have been put out by the statistical services and the rest. Um, the levels of poverty, Evans, are drastic in terms of what you see in the southern section of the country and what you start seeing from the middle belt, Ahafo, the Borno, and then all the way up to the northern regions. The difference is vast. The difference between the quality of education is also huge, which means that largely, and this again are proven facts, if you are not in the southern sector of this country, you cannot be guaranteed a very standard or very good level of education. That again proves that Ghana is not working for everybody, it's working for a few. Then you talk about business. Largely businesses in Ghana now, if you are not by force politically affiliated, your business cannot continue to run evenly from year to year, from election to election. As a matter of fact, as we are in Ghana now, most businesses, when it comes to election year, actually have to freeze because they don't know who is coming next year, and therefore they don't know what is going to be the impact on their businesses. We cannot have an economy developing with this sort of you know, approach to governance. And so, yes, I am indeed right when I say that the current Ghana we have now only works for a few people, those with a political class, those with a political power, those who can call the shots and nobody else can. And that is not the way countries develop. And so when I say let's move into a new Ghana, basically what I'm saying is that we need to move away from a country that is being hijacked by the political class, and that its operations and development is only developing they within the political class, not the entirety of Ghana. And there are figures and figures to prove this over and over again. You are a think tank. You just have to look at the Human Development Index of this country. It's not being bettered largely. It's not been massively moved forward in the last 20 or so years. You just have to take a look at life expectancy indexes. They haven't largely moved forward in the last, many years. You just have to take a look at our corruption profile index. It hasn't really, it's actually been declining in all these years. So, the reality is that we can say GDP is this, GDP is that, but the reality on the ground is that this country is not working for everybody. It's working for a few people. And I dare anyone to just walk onto the street and say to anybody, hey, look, we have been told that our GDP in the last 5 years on average has performed better than every other African country. What do you say? Every Ghanaian will tell you that their personal or individual GDPs are worsening. So only a few can say that things are working, but the majority will tell you things are not working.
Thank you very much indeed. So that's the explanation to the fact that Ghana does not work for everyone, particularly if you do not belong to a particular political class or political power, has been explained by Marricke Kofi Gane. But before we come to mainly how you intend to right the wrongs, that is, how you intend to, you've already given some examples, how you intend to, for example, stabilize our economy, push our human development index forward, and other things that you do largely as you have in your manifesto. Permit me to ask you this rather unfriendly question, I would say. What do you say to people? There are people who hold a view that, you're going to waste your money, on a fruitless venture. I guess this view perhaps is coming from the fact that in the previous elections that we've had, we've not seen a lot of improvement, even in the smaller parties, not to talk about independent candidates. And people actually say they feel you mean very well, but you might be wasting your money. What do you say to such people who hold this view?
Well, there are several ways you can look at it. Democracy in a lot of ways is also an act of ensuring that people have an opportunity to express uh, what they believe in. And so me coming onto the scene with my team and offering that extra choice to what we currently have as a duopoly, the NDC and MPP, nobody can put a premium on that, because for the first time, people who had decided they will not even vote are deciding that, okay, well, if Marricke is going to run this thing, then we will vote. We cannot put a premium on that. That is us offering quite a number of people within this country an opportunity to go to the polls and exercise their franchise, which they otherwise would not have exercised. The NDC can provide that because they are the very reasons why people are running away from the process. The MPP cannot provide that because they're the very reason why people are running away from the process. So what we are also offering people, apart from the number side of things, is that we are actually allowing people to exercise their democratic franchises. And democracy is such a thing that you cannot put a monetary value on it. And so I just want to get that out of the way. The other thing I want to say very quickly, Evans, is that when we started this agenda, we did not start because of the odds being in our favor or the statistics saying that this is possible in our favor. We were doing it because it was the right thing to do and it needed to get done. And finally, let me also say that, I don't know what the other smaller parties did in their time where they didn't clock the volumes or the numbers that they needed to clock to make an impact. We are a totally different breed. We have operated differently from day one. We believe differently. We have been very efficient in our processes. We've been very calculated and very, very dynamic, I must say. We've had a lot of youth coming on board. So we are doing this thing entirely differently from what we have seen independent or smaller parties do in the past. And, December, 7th is not too far away. That is the only point at which it can be proven that, this was a waste of money. But on many fronts, I don't think this has been a waste of money. But let me also say that talking about waste of money, people think that you can only do this thing if you have a lot of money. I want to say categorically to citizens who have those doubts that, look, every single thing we have done in this process has been funded by ordinary Ghanaians. As a matter of fact, I'll tell you right now that even the filing and the details, the running around the regions and collating, every single thing has been done by Ghanaians. And so let's not be, so again, I don't know how the others had done it. We are doing it differently and it's working.
Thank you very much. And pretty much to summarize what you said. So for those of you who feel that this probably might be a waste of money, I'm sure you heard it, such a comprehensive answer there. You can't place a monetary value on democracy, and Marricke Kofi Gane and the team believes that what they are doing is the right thing to be done. And mind you, they indeed have different operations, different from what has been done in the past. So perhaps we wait to see what happens in December 2020. Talking about also individuals funding your activities and bringing in the aspect of the filing your nominations, I should also use this opportunity to say congratulations to you for having successfully filed your nomination. How was it? How was the process like? If you might want to say something small about it.
It's a very intense process. I mean, for those of you who intend to go into office at some point in the future, just get ready. You've got to be very hardworking. You've got to love to work to be able to do this. It's a lot of work. It really is a lot of work. All the way from trying to fundraise for this, all the way through to going with a team to the regions to try and collate the details of persons who needed to nominate us. The blessing we had was that we started this process much earlier, even before the EC said go, because we had started asking, people who have been supporting us, those who would like to actually endorse me to be on the ballot. And so people had already stepped forward. We had a very comprehensive list of people who step forward, everyday Ghanaians like yourself and me, who step forward and say, yes, I would like to endorse your candidate. So we had a whole database of people. So it was easy in that sense, because whenever we went to one region or one district for that matter, it was literally a matter of just calling people up who had previously giving their names and saying, hey, we are going to be here on this day. Our team is already here. Can you contact them and give us your submission or your endorsement? And so that I think it would have been more difficult if we hadn't gone through that process prior. But nevertheless, it's still a very tough process. It's still a very difficult process, especially so because we are running as an independent. But it was quite heartwarming to see that people did step forward very, very voluntarily. That is the bit that overwhelmed me. And the actual submission process to the EC was very, very welcoming. The EC was very, how do I put it, very cordial with us. They welcomed us, received our forms and bid us well in the hope that we will get through the process and get on the ballot. So it was a very cordial process, I must say. But before that cordiality was a lot of hard work, really, really hard work.
Yeah, great. And
so I want to say a big thank you to everybody who was helped in that process, both those who agreed to endorse me and those who went around collecting those details.
Great. Congratulations once again. So let's see how to right the wrongs. I mean, we've seen your manifesto, and we in CEBSAR Africa, we've begun a series of discussion where we pick each sector weekly to discuss 3 main manifestos out there. Your manifesto, that of the MPP, the ruling party, and that of the National Democratic Congress, the largest oppositions party. So usually this is what we do. And I just want to say that there's one question here that people have praised your manifesto so far. They say that if you look at the other manifestos, they usually do not have things like cost of interventions is normally missing, and also accountability. Before we come to some specifics regarding how you intend to right the wrongs, but some have also raised this question: your key performance measures and policy evaluation schedule. How do we know this is not just rhetorics and it's not going to be business as usual politics? So yes, people have praised you for having that when you compare it to what other manifestos, but people also believe, is this not just a rhetoric, business as usual politics as we know?
Well, Evans, it cannot be a rhetoric. A rhetoric is something that is said but doesn't mean much. A rhetoric is something that has been repeated and doesn't mean much. This is the first time in any manifesto we're all saying this. And so it most definitely cannot be a rhetoric. The other reason why it cannot be a political rhetoric is that, people hold, political elements to account based on their manifesto. It would be suicidal to have put this on our manifesto, knowing very well that we don't have any intention to go along those. But what we've been trying to do in this process is to show Ghanaians that from the very get-go, we are for accountability. From the word start, we believe in ensuring that we even put ourselves forward for accountability even before we are elected into office. And so this for us is a major difference between our manifesto and other manifestos, is because we are saying to Ghanaians, listen, and we even included timelines in those that it was possible to calculate the timelines. Is what we are saying to Ghanaians is that, look, we have thought this through and through, and this proves that we have thought this through and through. 1, this is the time frame you should expect us to deliver on this. 2, this is how much averagely we expect to spend doing it. And 4, if you do need to judge us, these are the basis upon which you can judge us. So this is a social contract between us and the citizens of Ghana to say, you know what, on the basis of what we are saying we would deliver, this is how we want to be judged, so that it is acceptable to both parties, so that subsequently when the public is saying, you said you would deliver X amount of this within this period and you haven't delivered, yes, then we can accept that, yes, we have failed in that area. Or, this is a way we can better our record if we have already done so. So, no, it's not a rhetoric at all. We've been real in this process. Our manifesto cost us a lot of, well, not cost us, but involved a lot of people, a lot of time being spent, a lot of, very, very smart people who came together to pull this together. And so, all these people could not have wasted their time just to carve out a rhetoric. A rhetoric shouldn't be this expensive.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. And I must also say that that's also one that stands out in your manifesto in comparison to other manifestos. Again, another thing is the costing, which we see or we find missing in other manifestos. Usually, how do you arrive at these costs? The reason why I ask is that, for example, if you pick health or education, which we'll come to that briefly, you see that for some promises, you are able to attach costing to it, but for some, you do not. We are not too sure how then later, let's say for health, you arrive at 2.6 billion US dollars or so, correct me if I'm wrong on that, something like that. How do you arrive at this costing? And why is it that for some promises...
Health is about 6 billion, I think.
It's about 6 billion.
Health is about 6, yeah.
Okay. So how do you arrive at these figures? And why do we have missing costing for some promises?
Well, they aren't missing per se. So what we did is that, so we actually drew out the outline of the big things we wanted to cover during our tenure and even beyond in some cases. And then we took them stage by stage to determine what would be involved in delivering those. And then did estimates of what currently prices are, an extrapolation of what prices may likely to be. And this is me just simplifying it really. But a lot of work went into that process, and then calculating the, hopefully the present values of what they might cost even going forward 2 or 3 years down the line. In some cases, we could only estimate in USDs, for example, but had to bring it back to CDs because we're a CD spending country. So a lot of work went into determining the overall elements of the sections of the manifesto. What I will say, however, is that yes, you might see that there are some elements that have their individual costs attached. But everything in the manifesto for every section you see has actually got its cost included in that final total you see there. The reason why in some cases we actually put the cost close to the specific areas within the manifesto is because we just felt that those were areas that would definitely raise those questions, and so we preempted somebody reading the manifesto and say, okay, look, I know the total cost of this health, for example, is 6 billion, but it would have been interesting to know how much this particular one costs. And so what we did was a bit of preemption to include. But what I want to say is that everything within that section or the various sections of the manifesto have indeed been fully covered. Again, these are our best estimates, I want to say. It is very possible that judging from the way we've tried to be very efficient, and I keep saying this because efficiency is one of the biggest things we want to drive. Judging from the way we've tried to be efficient and everything, it could well turn out that we might be able to deliver all of that for just under 6 billion, or depending on what the world economy looks like at the time we start delivering those, it might be just a little bit above. But we've tried as much as possible to be very, very conservative in our costing process. So we hope to stay within this limits, God willing.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So let's come to the big question. How do you intend to fix the wrongs in current Ghana? I mean, I think for some of them particularly, the problem that Ghana works for only a few, who belong to a particular political class or political power. I think it's obviously clear that if we have an independent candidate, this is to some extent resolved. But let's come to main issues, because you also touched on one main problem, which is the low life expectancy that we have in Ghana, which is tied to health. So when we come to health, for example, what you want to do is clearly spelled in the manifesto, but I just want to touch on one or two questions here. You say as part of your key performance measures that you want to grow the coverage and membership of our national health insurance scheme to about 55% by the end of 4 years. And this is very important. I mean, Ghana or achieving universal primary health care is very, very important. But my question is, how do you achieve this 55%, given that, and you acknowledge that in your manifesto anyway, that currently about 40% Ghanaians are covered, and the coverage grows at about 1.7%, making reference to the 2017 data. Meanwhile, our annual population growth is around 2.2%. So is it really feasible? How do you plan to achieve
3.3%?
Sorry?
3.3%.
3.3%, our population growth. So thank you very much. So how do you plan to achieve the 55%, given the annual growth of population in comparison to the annual growth of coverage?
Well, I think we're looking at this thing a bit differently. So when we talk about grow it up to 55% over 4 years, we're not talking about the rate of growth. We're talking about the overall, what do we get to in 4 years' time. And I think it's worth remembering that quite a number of the people who should be on the NHIS are not on the NHIS even currently. As you rightly said, there's about 60% of our population who should be on there who are not. And we have narrowed it down to getting people the incentive to be on the NHIS. And there are a number of ways that we have decided to look at that. One of the biggest ones being that we do want to let people, currently when you talk to people, they tell you, oh, Adenokrapo, what do I benefit from being on the NHIS? Because even when I'm on the NHIS, I go there, I'm still expected to make a lot of payments. But so we want to play this a bit differently, which is that we need to give people an incentive to be on the NHIS. And one of the key ways we're trying to do that is to get them to start having a taste of what they will get, something very tangible that they will get by getting on the NHIS. So we have a series of things we want to do in that regard. The first one, which is a flagship one we're trying to run, is to ensure that, you see, and this is all data backed in our kind of deliberation or our strategy around this. You see, currently, about almost 80% of the incidents that happen that end up in the death of people are related to 3 key areas of health, largely heart-related diseases, largely, what do we call them? Respiratory-related diseases, and there's a third one. Now, all 3 of them are quite preventative sort of conditions. And so when we talked about getting more people on the NHIS, we are also talking about dealing with the preventative side of our health. And so what we have said we would do is that if you, for example, have never been on the health system before or on the NHIS, and you don't see any incentive to be on there, what we want to say to you is that, look, these are the 3 areas that could cause you to be normal. But what we are willing to do for you, if you are willing to come on the NHIS, is to give you a full comprehensive health check or health test when you do register. So for example, if you were to turn 40 today, or you were to register for NHIS for the first time today even, you should be getting a test that tells you what the state of your heart is. You should be getting a test that tells you the state of your respiratory, system. You should be getting a health check that tells you one or two other things. That for you is a real comprehensive history of you as an individual and a big motivation for you to be on the NHIS, because effectively what we've just done is to be able to communicate to you what your health, your life in terms of health looks like for another 5 years. If you know that, two things are likely to happen. Either that you get on treatment early, which means you can save your own life, or if things are heading in a certain direction. For example, I got tested some time back, and this is privately done, only for me to realize that my sugar level was approaching a level that was not acceptable. Suddenly, I had to change my lifestyle in terms of my consumption of sugary items and all that. Okay. Now, that is crucial information most people don't know. And for us, we believe that these are incentives enough for people to get on the NHIS. We're also hoping to do NHIS in a way that can attract groups and not necessarily just the individual agenda we're doing now. So we're trying to find creative ways of ensuring that we can sell the idea of the NHIS to groups who can subscribe to it, again, as groups, of course, with some discount. That is the benefit of being part of that group. But it also means that we can be able to capture a larger number in smaller pots rather than want to do the one-on-one until we get X number of people. So we're looking at various ways in which we want to expand the number of people who get onto the NHIS. Now, I know the group thing has currently been done in a few instances, but we want to roll it out on a large scale so that every group out there who value some of these things we are offering can be able to get on the NHIS at reasonable rates that apply to groups, so that they can take advantage of being part of those groups. So those are the few ways that, and many others that we're trying to engage in to ensure that more people do get on the NHIS.
Thank you very much. Maybe just a follow-up on the group aspect, which you rightly said that it's been done, but you want to really expand it very well. You also had this proposal to establish some form of differential premiums for different categories. I mean, you mentioned the group already,
right,
and then
right,
age brackets,
right.
and
so
health,
those are age
lifestyle
group
groups.
differentials.
Yeah, and the age
those
group,
are age group differentials.
And then you also talked about health lifestyles. I was wondering,
yeah.
I was wondering how that, for age, I guess the data should be available. What about the other categories, such as the health lifestyles? How do you determine that?
Well, it's not how do we determine that. It's how do, because this is an incentive to save cost on payment of NHIS. So it is largely, the onus is largely on whoever wants a reduced NHIS payment, because if you can prove to us that you do have a lively health style, say for example you have a gym membership, say for example you haven't had any problem with going or health problem in the last 1 year, those are all indications that you're already living some level of healthy lifestyle. And so it's these little things that give us indication that, you know what, there are some people who are already making an effort. And so if you are making an effort, it's a process of which we are trying to reward people for making the effort to keep their health. And indeed, if you are making that effort, then you shouldn't have to pay like everybody else in order for you to get on the NHIS. But it also is an advantage because, you know, this thing works like in obviously a large-scale insurance scheme. The more people who are on healthy lifestyle and who can prove likewise are less likely to make a demand on the NHIS system. And so effectively, that allows some funds that they are contributing to be available to cater for those who are on there but who have higher risk profile.
Thank you very much. So with regards to healthcare or improving the national health insurance scheme coverage, Marricke Kofi Gane's proposal mainly would be to incentivize people to be able to roll on onto the National Health Insurance Scheme. But maybe quickly, your view on what about those who also believe that, I know this is the view of the NDC that is proposing free primary health care, which some experts have also said it's an alternative to this National Health Insurance Scheme that comes with a lot of challenges. What would be your view on that? Would you want to implement that instead of, motivating people to join the National Health Insurance Scheme?
I think we should ask the NDC if they've not been able to fully roll out the NHIs, how they dare think they can do a free primary health care. I genuinely don't know if they have looked at the numbers well enough, but they are talking anything between 3 billion every year on top of what the current almost $1 billion a year on health is being spent. How they expect to deliver that is a really wild guess anybody should take. So I'm just looking at the financials. I generally don't think that the NDC is going to be able to. I think that is just political talk for the large part. Just looking at the financials, and I know you've been reading from our colleagues and the rest, like Dr. Kwame Sapong-Asiedu, on some of these things, and we've had some conversations around this. The numbers don't add up. The numbers really don't add up for that sort of agenda. I don't think we're there yet in terms of them wanting to roll out. Yes, it's a good thing to want to do, but for our state finances, that's a joke to say you want to do that. I think that's largely a political promise, not a real promise.
All right, thank you very much. Before we move to education, maybe one last bit on health. You also wrote somewhere that you intend to reduce secondary and tertiary health costs as promised. How do you intend to do that?
The idea is that we want to focus on primary healthcare, which is largely preventative. So one of the big things you notice in our manifesto we want to do is to equip every hospital with proper diagnostics, because currently what you still have is that if you go into a public health system right now, you are more than 80% more than likely to be told to go outside to get a diagnostics done. And then you have to come back inside to get an interpretation of those diagnostics and then the use or the application of those diagnostics to treat you. That time frame where you have to go out and get a diagnosis and then come back, a lot could happen. This is health we're talking about. A lot happens within a splinter of a second. So what we are saying is that if we can equip our hospitals in a manner that they are in a position to actually test the people at the very early stages. For example, Evans, we want to have a health system where if you're a woman and you go, maybe let's say you have not even been to the hospital in a long while, because our outpatient is 0.9 anyway, which means that people don't even go to the hospital just for checkups once a year. We don't. Now, and that's something we want to raise. What we are saying is that even if you've never been to the hospital in ages and then you go to the hospital today and they realize that, oh, you haven't been here in a while and you are 40 years old and you're a woman, automatically, and you have an NHI, automatically we want a situation where you should be able to be tested for ovarian cancer, to be tested for breast cancer, to be tested for the basic things that we know starts to have an onset from age 40 for women. If you're a man and you go to hospital and you're 40 years and that's the first time in a long while, automatically you should be tested for things like prostate cancer, the basic things that have an onset. They check your heart rate and everything, see what is happening with your heart condition. These are things we know. Some of them are very age related, and most of them are very preventative. The concept we are proposing is that if we can be preventative and see these things before they become an issue, a health issue, then we prevent a lot of issues rising up where they become things that need to be treated, not managed. If we can be preventative, we can manage a lot of our diseases. If we are not, then they eventually move into a stage where they need to be treated. And that is the stage where they have to get into your secondary and tertiary health cycles, which are the more expensive side of the health system. And so all we are saying is that if we can have a lot more preventative agenda, in terms of our health, we prevent a lot of pressure on the secondary and the tertiary health sector. And so we're going to be introducing things like, diet challenges, or even infrastructurally. And this is where we feel that our manifesto has a lot of connections with different sides of it. One of the things we're doing in infrastructure is to start, building bicycle tracks, so that people who are capable of riding to work can ride to work. It's a health style we have to start helping, so that people are free to get on this health cycle. Because currently, even if you wanted to ride a bicycle to work, you could not, because you would have to be competing with the trotro, the taxis, the Ubers, and the private vehicles and all that, and that is not safe. And so, in order to push these health agendas, for example, there are a number of things. We're going to have to start banning things like sugar in secondary school diets. We're going to start having to ensure that we build bicycle tracks, so that people create spaces within the town, so that people can go out there and exercise. We cannot just say that we want people to live a healthy lifestyle and not create the facilities for them to live that healthy lifestyle.
Thank you very much. That's wonderful out there. So more preventive measures in a way to reduce secondary and tertiary health. And also I like the education and putting in place the enabling environment to help people live a healthy lifestyle. Now let's come to education for the sake of our time. And I think now pretty much in Ghana, the hot topic when it comes to education is the free senior high school. What's your take on it? Are you going to abolish it if you are given the nod? And what are you going to do to improve upon the free senior high school, particularly the double track system that has been criticized a lot? Right. And what else again are you going to do? Okay, go ahead with your answers. Sorry.
Evans, first of all, it's not a free, SHS. I always like to correct that. It's not free. I mean, it's being paid for by taxpayers' money. No government comes into office with its own money to come and deliver anything. So it's Ghanaians' money that are being used for this thing. I don't like the fact that it's being called free. It's not free. We the people are paying for all of it. That's just by the side. I don't have a problem with SHS. I think it is something that every young child is entitled to. What I do have a problem with is that if we're going to spend that amount of money, almost 5 billion every year, to deal or to deliver SHS, then we might as well make sure we improve the quality of the SHS. And so for me, that has always been the issue. But even fundamental to that issue is that, you see, we've jumped into the, and this has been largely political for me, we've jumped into the middle of the educational cycle and started to deal with SHS. The reality, Evans, is that the JHS has not been working well. For the last 10 years, the JHS pass rate has been less than 60% every single year for the last 10 years. So if this is the subsector that gets moved into free SHS or SHS, then we have a problem, because we're not dealing with the fundamentals. The JHS, for example, was also created to ensure that it was the first level at which young people have a feel of academia and technical education, and based on that, determine where they wanted to go. Okay. Unfortunately, the JHS, for example, has lost that technical element to it. It has. And so most JHS don't have the tools right now. They don't have what it takes for people to have a first taste of technical education and decide whether that is what they want to do for the rest of their lives. That, I think, needs to come back. And so all through the value chain of our education, I think the focus should be quality, which is what we want to deliver. For example, we have a major project, which is retooling of all the cycles of education to ensure that at whatever level in educational ladder you are in, education is being made practical. That's what we want to do, to make education as practical as possible. You shouldn't be coming out of SHS and not know the basic tenets of operating a computer or technology. These things have to happen. because, you know, I hate the thing where people are in, look, I've come across young people in university, and they got their first laptop and they don't even know how to use Google. It's an indictment on us as a country. It really is. People might say, oh, but that's just Google. It is not just Google. You know, it is not just Google. If you can't do research at that level, at that very basic level, then we have big problems. So in terms of the SHS, we do want to practicalize education at all levels. We actually do have an intent to, there's a major project we're doing with the educational system in Ghana, which is to create a platform where learning can be done online. And I keep saying to people that if we had implemented our manifesto before COVID came, we would not have had a problem, because we would have killed two birds with one stone. One, we wouldn't have needed to be switching over because it would have been a normal and a regular part of our educational system. And two, it would ensure that such a learning platform deliver equity in education, which means that wherever you are in the country as a young person, you are accessing the same quality of content, the same quality of education, irrespective of where you are. And that is the equity within education we need to be happy about. And that's the biggest thing I am happy about within our manifesto, is that we have something that ensures that we bridge the gap between young people who are learning in the north of this country and young people who are learning in the southern sector of this country. There shouldn't be a bridge.
Thank you very much. So pretty much free senior high school hopefully should be continued, but should be improved in terms of the quality. And we also need to improve the very fundamental, that is our junior high schools, that has been left to rot to some extent. And you say that you would.
Can I just say something, Evans?
Go ahead.
Let me just add something quickly whilst you're doing this. But I just want to say that, you see, over the years, there have been discussions about making our secondary schools community day schools. And considering that we're a country that don't have that much money, that is a very viable consideration to make. The only reason why we are not making that consideration, or no government has actually stood up firm to make that consideration, is because they know they cannot deliver the same quality of education across all the schools. And so it'll be suicidal for anybody to say, oh, let's make all the schools day schools. What you lose out is that some schools are definitely going to do better and some are going to get much more worse. And so until we can have some equity in the quality of education we're delivering across board, we cannot also save money on moving from boarding systems, because you know, there are a lot of arguments to make about that in today's schools, which are very community-based. If you're in this community, X number of miles away from that community, then from that school, then you can attend that school. Not people traveling all the way from the north down the way to Kwabotre just because that is the only school that can give them the quality of education that they need. And it's always moving in one direction from the north to the south, never the other way around. And that is an indictment on us as a country where we talk about equity in education. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We would have to speed up a little bit. We have, I think, about 15 more minutes to wrap up. But let's look at corruption. At least we've seen what you would do in terms of, you know, fixing the wrongs. Corruption, you also mentioned it, you know, as in your intro, that it's also one of the big challenges that we are having. So what are your alternative strategies to reducing corruption and corruption perceptions in Ghana? What will you do differently, apart from the numerous, I don't want to go there, but what are you going to do differently?
Well, Evans, one thing I can assure you of is that I would want to see corruption punished at all levels. The good thing for what we are doing is that because we are running as an independent team, we don't have anything like the boys that need to be settled after election. You know, we don't have anything like this is the person who made the most noise during election and therefore they need to be compensated. We don't have anything like, oh, this is the party chairman, or this is the party chairman's son, or this is the person, the gurus within the parties that need to take a position. We don't have all those burdens. And so effectively, we can actually be in a position to say, you know what, we are recruiting on a largely meritocratic basis. In that those who are capable are those we bring on board to get a job done. No connections whatsoever in terms of, oh, because you are my this or that. No, that's not how we want to do things. So we believe in punishment at the very, very high levels. And you will see a lot of punishment at whatever level. The reason why we want to punish even at the very high levels for any form or shape or smell of corruption is that if you can do that at the very high level, then you now have the moral rights to go down to the lowest levels within the public sector and begin to fish out people and punish them drastically. You know, I always say that because we don't punish for corruption in this country, these days it's difficult for people to tell the difference between what is corrupt and what is not corrupt. Because if you don't do corruption, you go away scot-free. If you do corruption, you also go away scot-free. And you can't run a society like that, because you need to make the difference clear, what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. So that is one thing we want to enforce drastically, which is to punish corruption at all levels without fear or favor. Quickly, the other things we want to do is we have said we want to actually deliver affordable housing, proper affordable housing, not the kind of affordable housing that only ministers go and buy and then rent it back to the general population. We want every Ghanaian who is hardworking, who is diligent, and who can save some money to be able to get on the property and be able to own something for themselves before they get on retirement. When I say this, most people ask, what is the relationship between this and corruption? Well, the reality is that, you know, property, owning a house, owning a property is one of the biggest social values in our context, in our society, Ghana. It doesn't matter how long you have worked. If you get to the age of 50, 60, and you're retirement and you don't have something you can call your own home, it's a lot of problem. It brings issues. And so for most people, what you realize is that they may be some of the best performing staff and everything until they hit 50, 60, and then they realize, we don't have any property we can call our own home when we retire. Suddenly that person has the motivation to, you know, touch something. Let me put it that way. And if we can make the economy run in a way that by the time anybody hits 50 or 40, they are actually owning something they can call their own, a place they can call their home. It is a huge incentive not to get into those sort of unfamiliar situations of getting corrupt just because they wanted something to hold on to before they go on retirement. And so these are very social ways that we also want to deal with the issue of corruption. So that is two things we want to do. Thirdly, we do want to try and find a way, a very credible way to separate the fiduciary duties of the Bank of Ghana from its prudential duties. In other words, we cannot allow one institution to be making the, you know, guiding the financial institutions or the financial sector, but also be the ones overseeing whether they themselves are performing well or not. We all saw what happened in the financial breakdown within the banks and all that. A lot of those banks should not have gotten there in the first place if the units such as the supervision departments were doing their jobs right. And so we feel that it is crucial that those two are separated so that there can be some level of independence in ensuring that, you know, financial sectors do what they need to do. And that in a long way would also help the issue of corruption, because you know, the Bank of Ghana is heavily at the center or the culmination point of how money gets transacted into and outside of this country. And so those are very interesting things we're looking for to do. And lastly, I just want to say we do have a platform, a public platform where, Mr. Evans, if you were employing somebody for the first time, it will be a major database, public database, openly available. It will have the list of anybody and everybody who was being involved in any form of crime and have been prosecuted or charged or anything of the sort, including people who have been involved in any form of sexual harassment or sexual or rape or anything of the sort. The idea is quite simple. It also prevents things like corruption. If you've been ever charged for the like, your name is going to be on there for the next 5 years. It is to ensure that if you were going to recruit somebody today, Mr. Evans, that you could run the person's name and date of birth in that database and be sure that the person you are employing is not somebody who is being charged for corruption in the past or otherwise. Because otherwise, what happens is that somebody runs away from a corrupt act in, say, Savlugu in the north, and then runs away. Nobody knows of him in the south, so he comes down, applies for another role here, gets it, and repeats the same thing. And it is we as a society who loses. So we do want to create this database, openly available public database that prevents people because they know their names are going to be splashed into the public.
All right, thank you very much. So ways to reduce would be to punish at a very high level. I think this would be good so that this could serve as a warning to those at the lower level, affordable housing and separation of the Bank of Ghana's powers and the likes as ways to reduce corruption. We are running out of time, so I'll ask my final questions and then ask you to touch on a few sectors that we could not. You also mentioned something that was interesting, that for you as an independent candidate, obviously, you do not have to satisfy some boys or some financiers or some party big sympathizers and the rest like that. Everything will be done based on meritocracy basis. But when it comes to the issue of appointing ministers, there are some who are asking the question, I mean, where are you going to get your ministers from? I mean, especially if you, maybe I should ask the first question like this. First of all, briefly, how many ministers would you use or do you find appropriate for a country like Ghana?
I don't think we should have more than 50 ministers.
Okay, not more than 50 ministers. Fair enough. No. And maybe do you believe in the MPP and the NDC? Do you believe in their parliamentarians? Because obviously we would not have more than 50 independent parliamentarians in Ghana. What's your take on that? Do you believe in the MPP and the NDCs?
Well, it's not about believing. This is not about NDC or MPP. These are individuals who are in office, in parliament, hopefully to do some good for their societies. And let's be honest, there are some good ones in there. And even this is an advantage for me as an independent candidate, because I keep saying if the NDC was to win office right now, they would only select people from the NDC. And we know the NDC doesn't have all the men. If the MPP wins power, it's going to go and select people from the MPP alone. We know the MPP doesn't have all the men. I, as an independent candidate, I am actually in a much brighter position because I can choose the best of both worlds. So yes, I know we bash the NDC and MPP a lot, but let's also be honest about it. There are some really decent people within parliament. You know, it's just that because they are all in parliament, usually when something touches one person, it touches all of parliament. But there are some people who have gone in there because they want to do good, just like myself and others on our team. And we should be able to fish out those people who are capable and who have this country at heart. Unknown to a lot of people, there is quite a number of divisions within parliament. There are a block that are just there for the politics. There are also a block there who go in there because they wanted to see something good happen, except that they had to go on a party ticket because it's the easiest way to get in there. And so I'm not discounting the fact that there are some good people in there. But let me also say that there is quite a number of independent candidates who are filing to run this year into parliament. And I can only wish them well that they do get in there. But it doesn't mean that simply because they are independent, they have to be selected for positions. For us, it's always about who is capable.
Thank you very much. So that's where meritocracy come in. Thank you. Thank you very much. I think this is pretty much clear to those of you who were worried that how is it going to select his ministers, given that our constitution, mandates that majority of our ministers should come from parliament. I think this is quite clear. There are always decent men and women in both political parties that could be fished out. And I think indeed that gives him even a better opportunity in comparison to if it's the MPP or the NDC. We don't have enough time. I think we have 5 more minutes more to end the discussion. And I would like to give that to you too, if you want to say something about the economy or other sectors that we couldn't talk about, and perhaps also your concluding remark.
Right. Thank you, Evans. I mean, the big thing for the economy, we always hear the rhetoric that, oh, let's move into a productive economy and all that. But I think we fail to realize that in doing so, a few fundamentals are very, very necessary. One of them is largely what we want to have a big focus on, which is education, because if you are not producing the quality of personnel to make productivity happen, then it doesn't matter whether you want to raise your own companies internally or you want investors to come in. Investors always look at the quality of labor you have and how that can impact on their productivity. And which is why when we stress education the way we do, we have the economy also in mind in doing so. And so let me just say that the starting point for us all when we talk about economy is that education is key in delivering the right economy. That's one. The other thing, which is a big agenda we want to drive economy-wise, is to ensure that we do eventually have and own a centralized, how do we call it, citizenry database system. Uh, it will do us a lot of good to have a centralized database so that the one Ghanaian has one card that connects to everything else. Let's have that one card, and to that card, let's have your health records attached to it within a centralized system or even within a peripheral system, so that once that number on your card is tapped in, any doctor in any side of this country can access your health records. So that we don't have a situation where even if you move from here to Yankwanduri today, you'll be told that go back to Accra and go and bring your file. It is nonsensical for a country that has lived 63 years in independence. If we had a centralized system like that, law enforcement will be much easier to deal with because the police will know where to find you. The agencies will know where to find you. If you had a system like that, it would also help things like the land management because every land in this country would be assigned to just one name. We will be able to track when the last time it was sold, who it was sold to, who now has ownership. All these things come down, and this is how commerce begins to happen. If you don't have a system where you can track people, you can never have commerce happening. Delivery would not happen, and if delivery is not happening, commerce cannot happen. So this big agenda of having a centralized citizenry database or identification system in place is a big agenda for us. It will also ensure that the likes of the EC at the end or the beginning of every 4 years just have to log into that database and call for everybody who has turned 18 that year, and automatically they have their database with which to run the election, not to every year have the financing 200 million to start an entire process all over again. So there are a lot of things that are tied up to this particular big agenda we're driving. But let me also say that one of the big things we want to do for our economy is to grow certain areas of our economy we've never really taken serious. Tourism is one of them. We have the blueprint to make tourism a big economy for us. It's a low-hanging fruit that we've not really explored well. We do feel we have the blueprint to explore that well together with our arts and culture. And so we're going to combine tourism, our arts, and our culture to be able to create an entire new big economy on its own on a scale that has never been seen. That's one. Technology is another area of economy we want to expand. And largely what we are doing is that we've already identified certain hotspots within the technological sector that people are already pulling their weight and trying. They've just not had the support, and that's the support we want to bring to the table so that they're in a position to expand the economy around technology. I know time is run past, and so I'll end here. But yeah, happy talking to you guys again, and hopefully we get some time in the future to explore something.
Yeah, sure. Not thank you very much, but I'll ask you just maybe quickly. You said you would not use more than 50, right? Ministers you feel that Ghana. Did you say 15 or 50? I want a clarification on that.
I said 50.
50. Thank you very much. 50. So I would come to you and ask you finally, what you think, your advice to fellow Ghanaians regarding the elections that is coming, what they should do in order for us all to have a peaceful and fair elections. But thank you, fellow CEBSArians who are watching with us. Let me read one comment here for the sake of time from Professor Inoko Pokwenchu, who says, I agree with him that the country is working for a few people. So what do you say to our fellow Ghanaians, regarding observing a peaceful, free and fair elections? Your final comment on that.
I would say go to the polls, go with all the influence which is in your thumb as much as you can. Encourage others to do the same. Don't let people sit at home because they don't feel there is a need to vote anymore. This is even more the time that you should be voting. So go out there as peacefully as you can, make your vote, stand by if you can, watch the ballots counted, be sure that those who you voted for have their fair share of the ballots that you casted for them. But more importantly, go to the polls this December understanding one thing. We don't have another 28 years. We really do not have another 28 years. So this year, I encourage you all, go out there in your numbers and vote Marricke Kofi Gane. This is the change that would reshape this country and make this country better than we've ever had it.
Thank you very much. And I would also end on a note, something I picked from your manifesto, not necessarily campaigning for you, though, but it says, God has blessed our homeland, Ghana. It is up to us to make her great and strong. If we miss this one opportunity, it will cost us another 63 years. We don't have another 63 years. Do it because Ghana deserves better. And so what I say is that for all aspirants, when you are elected, please do it because Ghana deserves better. Thank you very much. I am Evans Apia Kisi, the host of CEBSAR Talk. Today, we were pleased to host Mr. Marricke Kofi Gane. He's an independent presidential candidate aspirant. Thank you, sir. Thank you, our viewers, followers, and everyone. Please don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, share, comment, and like it. Thank you, and see you on CEBSAR Talk next week. Bye-bye.